It's black's turn now. White is obviously trying to play g5, h5 and to develop an attack there. In the game, black calmly played g6. It looks like a mistake at the first sight because we shouldn't move pawns on the side of the board where we are under an attack, and here it looks like it will simplify the white's task because after h5 white will open the lines quickly. However, as we already know, it's not dangerous for black, so we may not worry about it too much. Now let's see what happened after that. Black played c5, which is of course a correct decision. As I told you earlier, white has to spend a lot of moves in order to develop that attack on the king side using the h-file. That's why, of course, it makes sense for black to use this time to start a counter-attack. Very often your counter-attack will be much faster. g5, bishop g7, queen h4. White did all his typical moves, but after rook e8 and in exchange on the g6, white has no effective continuation of his attack. After queen h7 and king f8, okay, let's create this position, queen h7, king f8, you can see that white has no attacking moves at all. That's why in the game he tried another idea. He played knight h2, trying to bring the knight to the f6 probably. Black played king f8, knight g4. In this position actually black has quite a lot of moves to play. In the game he played king e7, queen f4 was possible here also. You see the white's deck is not powerful really, and black has many defensive ideas. Queen h7, rook g8, and white tried the move d5, trying to open the position on the king side. And here I'd like you to pay attention on one important aspect. The white's piece is stuck on the king side. It often happens when white is trying to attack on the h-file. Now his queen on the h7 and rook on the h1 becomes out of game. And that's why, though black has the king in the center, white has no real way to develop the attack. King f8. After this simple move, black is threatening rook h8, and a funny situation really happens. It looks like white is an attacker, but now he's in huge trouble. After rook h8, the white's queen is trapped. Also, black is going just to take the pawn on the d5, and white simply has nothing to do. Perhaps he has to go back, something like queen h3, but of course this doesn't create any problems for black. Black will play rook h8, and then, for example, after an exchange, he can take the d5 pawn, and you can see that the white's attack failed, and black got a material advantage. Here is another similar situation. White played bishop h6, trying to exchange this bishop. And of course black doesn't want to trade the bishop because it is the main defender of the black's king and of the black's castling. That's why black has a typical idea of a positional sacrifice, and he played bishop h8. Maybe you have seen this game before, it's quite a classical example, but I'd like you to take a look at this example from another point of view. Usually people think that black plays bishop h8 trying to save the bishop and to attack the white's b2 pawn afterwards. Of course this is true, but mainly black avoids an exchange trying to protect his king. That's why this is rather a defensive positional sacrifice. And after bishop take and queen take, white played a3. Okay, I'd just like to show you the position like this. After h5, let's say black will play bishop g7. Of course, it's not necessary for black, but I just like to create this classical situation. After that, you can see that white has no attacking ideas at all. White can double rooks there on the h-file, it will not give anything for white. And the black's bishop g7 is the great defender, and it's enough for black to have only this one piece in order to provide a safety position of his king. Now black can develop his own counterattack on the queen side on the b file. Okay, let's see what happened in the game. In the game, white played badly, and black won the game pretty soon. After bishop d3, c5, knight takes, and after knight a4 and bishop d7, the black's position is already winning. White has no way to protect the b2 pawn and the a4 knight. In the game, they played in this variation: queen h6, f4, knight takes f4. Well, actually, black has a lot of winning continuations here. Rook d2, bishop takes, bishop c3, and black won the game. Rook b1. Okay, in this example we just have seen that the black's bishop on the g-zone is an extremely important piece, and that's why one of the typical ideas is a positional sacrifice of an exchange, trying to save this bishop and avoid an exchange. Okay, now let's draw the conclusions. First of all, an attack on the h-file is not so effective. It takes a lot of time to prepare it, and usually it doesn't bring any serious results. This brings us to the next conclusion: black should draw the counterattack. As we already know, white has to spend about 10 moves in order to develop this typical attack on the h-file. This gives black a lot of time to develop a successful counterattack. So don't afraid of this attack and don't waste time on making defensive moves. Start a counterattack and you have great chances that your counterattack will be faster. Next conclusion: the white's piece is stuck on the king side. When white concentrates all his heavy pieces on the h-file, it gives black a great advantage in the center and on the queen side. This is one more argument for starting a counterattack. And the next conclusion: the g7 bishop is the key of the black's defense. Also, this gives black a typical idea of a positional sacrifice of an exchange in order to save the g7 bishop. This bishop covers all the weak squares around the black's king, and it's enough just to have this one bishop on the g7, and this will protect your king enough against all the heavy pieces of your opponent. These are all the main conclusions concerning this topic. Perhaps they look simple, but many chess players don't understand them. A lot of players still believe that an attack on the h-file is easily winning. Now you can use this misunderstanding in order to gain more victories. Have a nice day, goodbye.